My name is Kayleb. I'm Hmong, young, and I'm attracted to the same gender. There is no word in my language to describe my sexual orientation, therefore I do not exist. I was born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm the youngest of 4 children. My childhood wasn't rough, it wasn't bad, yet it wasn't the best either. As a little girl, I always felt something off about my body. The physical features I embodied were not the ones I desired at the time. I always felt like a little boy, but who was I going to tell? It seemed a little crazy at the time. I was always the tomboy that played with the boys. I got teased all the time by my uncles and aunts because I didn't play the proper role of a Hmong girl. To be a Hmong girl means you have to dress appropriately, listen to your elders, do whatever chores people have for you, and never argue with people who are supposedly your superiors. It never really made sense to me as a child. I was young, so I just let my imagination run. I would still play football with the boys or run around thinking I was the red Power Ranger and not the pink one. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I realized I was born into a patriarchal community. Men had power, men ate first, and men did whatever they wanted. I never liked going to my dad's family gatherings because I didn't want to put food on the table for men to eat, and I especially didn't want to deny people without getting told I was a terrible daughter. Why couldn't I just enjoy my time with my family without having to worry about my image? See, I was there at these family gatherings, but I wasn't there. I spoke against what I liked. For me to speak back was forbidden in my family just because I was a girl. People looked at me like a black sheep because I didn't act like a proper Hmong girl. They eventually just let me be. I liked it that no one bossed me around, but I didn't like the fact that no one interacted with me as well. I didn't know what to do, so I spent a lot of time alone. It was hard for me because how was I supposed to learn about my culture, my language, and learn my roots when no one was willing to acknowledge me? When I cut my hair short in high school, it really made me the family outcast. People wouldn't even greet me. I get the cold shoulders all the time just because I look different. I felt alone. The only people I had in my life were my close cousins, so I had to make family outside of family. Through all my struggles, I thought the people that would at least have my back were my parents. I remember when I cut my hair short, my mom came up to me and she said, "I hope one day you don't come home and tell me that you are gay." It hurt me so much that I locked myself in my room all the time. I didn't want to be around people who didn't like me for me, even if they were my family. I knew my parents always had a feeling I was different, but I never thought they would try to change me. When I came out to my parents about my sexuality, they just ignored it. They were in denial, and the reaction I got from them was not the supportive reaction I needed. At one point in life, I was the only kid living at home with my parents. I remember being left home alone all the time. I always had a feeling I was alone because no one wanted to be around a queer person. My sisters were off living their own lives and my brother was always out and about. My parents had a lot of friends out of town, so they were never home on the weekends. I liked being home, just not alone. I remember there were many times where I'd be in my room and I could hear my mom and dad getting ready to leave the house. I'd go out and ask them where they were going, just to hope that they would bother asking me if I wanted to tag along too. Most times I didn't get asked to attend places with them. And they'd tell me to just stay home and read a book or clean the house. So every time someone walked out and that door would shut behind them, emptiness would creep in. The silence of being left alone after they drove off felt like being in a small closed room and all the lights suddenly go off and you're surrounded by darkness. Not that it mattered if my family was home. There was always space between us. Sometimes I wish my parents would have just took a second to realize me. My parents spoiled me, and then they just let me be. But they never realized that I wanted the little things. Maybe they could have asked me how my day was, or what are my hobbies, or who were my friends, or maybe just tell me they love and miss me. I just wanted to feel loved. I struggled a lot with my relationship with my dad. He was never really the type of person to express his feelings, so the communication between us wasn't there. I got in trouble as a teen, so I always got lectures from my dad. I also feel like being queer had a lot to do with how my dad interacted with me. In public, he was really shady. He didn't really acknowledge that that I was in the same spaces as him. Never spoke to me unless he needed a favor. Let's just say he only spoke to me when he was in a really, really good mood or when I got in trouble. And one thing that my dad would say to me when I got in trouble was, "Go ahead, Jason, go to your name." Meaning you're just a dog, you're not human. Every time my dad said something negative, it shot me down. I would feel my blood rushing to my head and everything around me just stops. And before I knew it, I'd start to cry. My dad is the most powerful man I know. And to have a man that has never been petrified by anything bring you down was horrifying. I don't know if this made me selfish, but I would tell my parents that they favored my siblings more. My mom would tell me they loved us all equally, but it didn't feel like it at times. My siblings loved my parents, but most times they'd rather be with their friends. I can tell my parents got sad every time one of my siblings stood them up. It made me really upset when my siblings would cancel their plans with my parents. And I would tell myself that if one day mom and dad ever decided that they wanted to hang out, that I'd make time for them. And that I wish I had the guts to tell my brother to be grateful that my dad invites him to go on road trips. Because I'll never get that invite. I would remind my sister that it wouldn't hurt to be patient with my mother, because our mother brags about her college-educated daughter to others, and that she'll never brag about her queer, complicated daughter to anyone. I tell my siblings not to take my parents for granted because I do anything for their attention. That if I could just get through to my parents, I would let them know that I'm still their daughter. That same little girl they took to soccer games every Saturdays, that little innocent girl who gave them hugs and kisses before bedtime, that little girl who had big dreams. If I could just get through to my parents, that I never left, I never changed, that I've been queer all my life. The only difference is my appearance. Maybe then they'll pay more attention to me. I am a fighter. I never gave up on anything. I challenged my mom a lot about my sexuality. We didn't have good communication, so I would write her letters about how I felt. It was the only way I was able to communicate with her and tell her how I felt without there being any tension. We slowly built our relationship through writing. Not only have I grew as a queer person, but my mom grew with me as an ally. But even though we were growing together, we still ran into rainy days. My parents and I didn't agree on a lot of things, and we'd argue about situations that would always lead back to my sexual orientation. We'd argue until we all snapped and said messed up things to each other. Sometimes our arguments would get so intense verbally to the point where I didn't feel safe at home anymore. And I'll be honest, I haven't been home lately. I mean, I would be home physically, but I wouldn't be home mentally. Growing up, I would brag to my parents about what I took pride in. And they would try very hard to support me, whether it was going to every basketball game, making sure they didn't miss my spelling bee, to being at my graduation. But I couldn't brag to them about being asked to be a keynote speaker. It was hard enough to write a keynote on the relationship I had with the two people I love and miss the most when they were the ones who hurt me the most. I spent so much time searching for the root causes of this unhappiness that I've been feeling that I never took a second to think. Maybe my mom and dad were just as confused as I was. Maybe they were trying to protect themselves as well, that they forgot to protect me too. I broke down yesterday. See, yesterday I didn't have the capacity to tell you my story, to share my story. Yesterday I wasn't home. Yesterday I was fed up. But yesterday I stepped up. I took a breath. I took a chance. I took this pain and I decided to text my mom. I shared with her my inner demons. And with her love, she selflessly pulled me out of the darkness and into the light. She said to me, "You are smart, and I believe you can do whatever you put your mind to. When I push you to do better, it's because I love and want you to see you do well. I will not be around forever. I just want to see you be able to care for yourself. No matter what we say or do, our love is unconditional. And I miss taking you to sporting events too. And I'm still that same mom. Go do your best on that speech."
Yeah.